Welcome to the Jeff and Alex podcast. I am Jeff Hillemeyer, and with my friend Alex Gonzalez, we explore topics that help you be your best self. And we also get to chat with some great guests. So join us now on the Jeff and Alex podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jeff and Alex podcast. Hope you're having a great day. And Jeff Hillemeyer, how are you doing?
I'm good, Alex. How are you?
It's excellent. It's another early weekend morning for us, as we work 24/7 on our show.
That's right. We're grinding it out. It's actually the quiet time at our houses, I think, right?
It is. And, even though I'm still relegated to, from sunshine to, the lower part of isolated part of the world, it's still quiet, because you never know. As you know, of course, you have younger kids, so you're smart. I would say it's more unpredictable in your house and when you're going to get noise, but, I find as they get older, they just don't care and respect rules. And
right. But they're probably sleeping later. I have ones that bounce up at like 6:30 or 7.
Yeah, that is true. That they sleep later, but when they're up, they're heavier and have no regard for what mom and dad are doing. So
fair. I'll be on the lookout for that. Well, what's interesting this week, Apple had their big event, and what I want to do is chat with you a little bit about that. One of the things that you and I like to talk about is platforms, and especially what Apple and Google are doing. Now, I use a MacBook, I use an iPad, but I have the Google Pixel phone. And so I've had that sort of disparate systems for years now, but I've always been thinking about if to go back. I've tried Chromebooks. They're just obviously no match for Mac products. Tablets, Apple destroys. I mean, they're so much better. The iPad is so much better. But this, I got to say, this last announcement got me thinking. But you're all Apple.
Yeah, I mean, now I say I'm all Apple in terms of our personal home choice is definitely Apple. So, as we record here, it's working through a MacBook Pro, and we have an Apple, so, and of course we're all iPhones and, big iPads. In fact, we tried to use another tablet at one point, and it's just hard to replace with iPad. And the AirPods, everything, and buying more of their services too, we're finding, because it's highly integrated and it's easy for everybody in the family, which I think is a key part of it in terms of simplicity of it. But that said, from kind of work related or outside, so I've always had different tech usually, wherever I work, or like Metro Atlanta Chamber uses Surfaces and Microsoft products and all that. So I do use other tech, but at home, it's been Apple, and I would say the ecosystem is why we do that all the time.
Yeah, and my entire family is also on Apple. I just with Google, the Google Pixel phone was the first, I would say, phone experience that could rival the iPhone. So many other Samsung, so many other companies make, Google run products. They run on Android. But the Pixel was the first one. What Google's never done so far has created a watch experience. You can run their OS on a Samsung watch, for instance, but it's never been as good to me as the Apple Watch, which I used in the past. And so, but the Google Assistant, I think, is far better than Siri, and it should be, right? I mean, Google's been, an information and search company forever. So there's been some things that have had me sort of looking to go back to Apple, and the watch has been mostly the crux, and I just keep every year waiting. All right, Google, is this going to be the year? But I got to say, the announcements about Fitness Plus that Apple announced this week, it's really got me thinking about it.
Well, I think, so the Fitness Plus announcement, which I know really got you, which gets into this whole ecosystem of fitness in general. I think also with the announcement, the bundling of services too, I think is going to be a pretty big deal. Because you look, and by the way, you go into Google, it's hard to also avoid is, with your Google ID, and all that, in terms of they actually their ecosystem is actually relatively integrated in terms of your user experience online and using Google Drive and probably better in terms of interacting with other people using,
Hmm.
their tech. But the integration of devices to software with Apple. But yeah, so no, I'm very intrigued. For me as a user of so many Apple services, the bundling, as non-sexy as that sounds, it's
Yeah.
almost, one of the more interesting things is for $30 you could almost get premier access to everything. But yeah, but I know, yeah, I know the fitness thing. What kind of drew you into the fitness platform?
I love the idea of, I don't know, like a motivational, sort of inspirational component to tech that would get you exercising. I think it's everybody that has the Peloton,
Mm-hmm.
that just absolutely loves it. And they're working out like crazy because it's competitive and there's points and it's all this silly stuff, but anything to get you more active. And, the Apple Watch has always been really good about tracking that kind of thing. But with Fitness Plus, it seems like, at least what I saw in the um, advertisement, it will do things like that. It will have, access to classes. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a treadmill or you're, doing yoga, it will track that in real time. And I think also show you sort of how you did compared to other people who've done that same course or something. And I just think all that's really interesting. I have the Garmin right
Yeah.
now, and the Garmin's amazing for the 3 to 5 times a week that I actually work out, but it obviously doesn't have the the same kind of experience with the phone. With, it doesn't, it's a smartwatch but not really. And so I don't know, the fitness, the idea of it being always there going, hey, time for that workout, I kind of like that idea.
Now it sounds like you're not, other than what you have with the Garmin, you do not have any subscription based fitness plan now, either through your equipment or anything like that, right?
No, no. And you've got the, which one do you
Yeah,
have?
no. Well, it's interesting because one, I agree, 100% agree with you, and I would not have expected to get sucked into one of these platforms. So I could see how Apple Plus is going to, or the Apple Fitness is going to do well. We this summer, as and I think I don't have any hard data, but I think you hear the home fitness has just boomed during the pandemic. And in fact, you can't even find. We're trying to shop for some dumbbells and stuff the other day, and you can't even find it in stores anymore. I mean, there's backlog and stuff like in home equipment, but we actually ended up getting the Nordictrack S22i or whatever, which is the Peloton competitor. And frankly, there was no magic to Peloton or Nordictrack other than when we were getting it, one had less of a backlog than the other,
Yeah.
and because all those two pieces of equipment were backlogged, and two is frankly the device we got. So there's a few features, including just the way the screen flips and all that have worked better for us. But the thing I did not expect, going back to your point, was I was thinking, oh man, do I really want this monthly subscription, all that type of stuff? And Nordic is this iFit platform, which is a subscription program every month. You get access to all these programs. I did not think that'd be important.
Hmm.
Life changing,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I will tell you, it is absolutely life changing because it sucked for both my wife and I, and even some of our kids that have been using it. Not it's all of a sudden riding bikes through, I think I just was riding through Argentina the other day, um, through some on-demand
On the
courses
screen, it
on the
shows
screen.
you.
Yeah,
Gosh,
and they
that's
have a
cool.
trainer, and you're following them, and they kind of keep you to the cadence. And what we like about this device we got is the trainer on screen actually controls the settings on your device. So the
Mm.
resistance, the incline, and all that, they're actually doing it. You don't have to touch anything. But beyond that, what I thought was interesting was, and I'm sure Peloton has some. In fact, I know Peloton has this as well too. But with the platform, was we flipped the screen around, that now I'm using it probably half the time for non-bike related stuff. So like a weight thing or whatever, or core fitness that's not related to the
Mm.
bike, because they have this this ecosystem with their trainers and the platform to do, and it's just total fitness. So it has been, I was so skeptical of it. So it's going to be interesting now with Apple in terms of with Apple Fitness. For me, it's going to be like, when do I use this versus that? But I could see how it's going to draw people into it, because there is something about trainers helping you, and if they could get them in your living room, holy cow! I mean, it's a change.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And again, like literally everybody I know, including you now, that has an experience like that loves it. And I've always find like when I'm running, if I have a running partner, and they're going to be out there at 6 a.m., I've got to be out there. So it's sort of that accountability piece that is interesting. But going back to sort of the ecosystem itself, like one of the things you and I really like is the Apple TV Plus
Oh man.
experience. And I don't know if you do this, but I actually use that as like a place to pull in all the content. I don't think it does Netflix, but everything else. Like, so if I'm watching something on Amazon Prime and I pull up the Apple TV app, it shows me where I left off on that episode. And so I can jump right into it, or Hulu. And so it's really great because yes, the content that we both love that Apple TV Plus is producing, but it's become sort of this way to pull in all the different content again, other than Netflix, into one experience. So I can go, oh yeah, that's right. Let me jump in and watch the rest of that episode. And I just think Apple's doing a better job with that kind of thing. And of course they would. It still bothers me that on an Android device, I can't listen to Apple Music. I can't use the watch unless I'm using an iPhone. All that stuff bugs me, but I'm starting to get to the point where they've done a better job pulling things together, the fitness, the TV experience, that I don't know, it might be time to.
Well, it's interesting, the TV thing. We were, trying to do some upgrades of TV, a little bit ago. And I kept waiting I waited a few years because I kept waiting for Apple to actually produce not just Apple TV, the small device, but actually a screen, right, and all that, which did not do. And so I guess I'm with you. I'm hooked on Apple TV Plus, a little different for what you are. I mean, I've just fell in love with the content. I think that, Apple's investment and amount of money they're putting into content development, and everybody who I know who ends up watching one of their shows, like Ted Lasso is the latest one, people who I never, like, I know you've gotten hooked onto it, and people who I never would have thought would be watching it have hooked into this show. And you could just talk about other content, but I haven't used it as much for the ecosystem piece. And part of it's because I think we have the Samsung TV, and so we're using their apps to try to create the experience. But going back to it, I think I think that's their bet, and I think it's the ideal bet. And you could even go back to all the way to, financial services, where they're like, if I have 3 products with this bank, I'm going to be more likely to put all my business with this bank. And that's the play I think the tech companies are doing. And with Apple, and that's why I keep going back to this whole bundling thing, as unsexy as that is, like Apple TV, the more I have with that platform, the more I'm going to stick with it, and makes you challenge everything else.
And I think you're going to essentially get Apple Fitness Plus for free, because the bundle includes other things you're paying for. So it's like you're already paying.
So I think if I did the math right, I mean, we already pay for Apple TV, we have Apple Music, and this is all family level services. We're buying some level of data because it's easier to, which is interesting because there's probably better products out there, and I use some of them for storage. But, you end up using for the ease of it for the family, for just pictures, right? All of a sudden, the other day, I found having to upgrade my storage for Apple because it was just easy. Yeah. Just to buy their storage. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, if I pay this much a month, I'm going to get into Apple Fitness included, and also Apple News Plus, which, by the way, particularly my wife and I find herself using that. Yeah. And it wasn't even deliberate. It was just so convenient on the phone and then on the computer, that this curated amount of news from different sources. But just recently we were like, oh man, I wish we had Plus, because, but we were never ready to pay the extra whatever a month. It wasn't that worth it to get the articles, but also we're like, oh, that's going to be kind of nice to get those bonus or, subscription articles. So yeah, so it's interesting how I think this is the journey for Apple, which is becoming much more of a services business, which is a great lesson, by the way, for a lot of businesses in terms of how you could create those repeatable, you know, revenue streams for your business.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because at the same time, I think we both prefer Google Drive and or Dropbox for storage.
Yeah.
We're both using iCloud at a certain level for storage just because it's pulling things in. But that's the game that I think Google still has me in. I'm
Yeah.
Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive. My whole company's run on Google products, and so they've got that. But gosh, from a consumer and from a device perspective, and unless now here's the thing, unless this, I think October, Google has their big event coming up here. So
Yeah.
if they announce a watch, if they announce some of these things, but I think it's unless they announce some sort of fitness and or media component, I think it's going to be hard not to, again, as a consumer, go that direction. But my whole company uses MacBook Pros, so their devices are still top of the line. But again, from a software perspective, Google still wins for us.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting part with Apple. They've other than maybe in education, have, and even then I'm not 100% sure, because I know a lot of the schools, even if they use Apple products, they still have, other services. But yeah, you're right. I think for business, I mean, you and you share stuff with Dropbox all the time, and it's easy. I wouldn't even know how to begin sharing with, and I'm sure there's someone from Apple. I'm sure, for our millions of viewers, there's someone from Apple watching right now saying, well, no, we could do that as well.
Yeah.
And any of these companies will be happy to bring on as a sponsor too, and we'd be more than happy to push their
Apple,
products, of
Google,
course.
even
Yeah,
Dropbox.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, no, I think on the enterprise level, I think you're right. I think the Google and these other services a little bit more. But it would be interesting though, because I think Apple is such a design-centered, consumer design-centered company. I think they've been staying
Yeah.
true to that, and I think what we're seeing now is them putting that tremendous focus onto the services business, and they still make good. I mean, their physical products are still good. And look,
Yeah.
you read reviews, and this is where I don't know about you. I mean, because it's interesting. I think when I first met you, this is when you're doing all your switches to different devices, and your more techie friends are giving you a hard time and all that stuff. But to me, there's some nuances that I know outperform perhaps my Apple products. But my God, it's just a beautiful integrated device that,
Yeah.
and obviously we're paying a premium for.
Yeah, yeah. I do think it's interesting though. Like, think about our podcast as we look at the analytics.
Hmm.
Pretty much, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would guess 90% of Apple users that listen to our podcast are doing it on the Apple Podcast app. Most of them are doing that, whereas Android, it's split across like 4 or 5 different apps. And the same is for gaming. Like, you know, when we would create games, the App Store itself is where every Apple user gets their games, and so they just got these hooks. And that's the last time I switched back to an iPhone was actually when Dragon Army was making games, and that's all we were doing as a company. And we got to a point where we're like, we're just going to build it for Apple, and if it goes well, then we'll build the Android version,
Right.
because the Apple experience is just so much better. And so I switched because I couldn't play our games otherwise. And that's another, like, it's just that they've honed in on a few things that really pull you in. And again, once the device is in your hand, their ecosystem just comes to life. So
Well, and I think innovation to me, it always starts with the customer, right? And the user experience, and I think we overuse but underutilize the term customer experience, right? Because we think it's about a feature. But I think Apple is a great example of what holistic customer experience is about, right? How do I really integrate in the lives of the consumers, to the point that almost the consumer doesn't realize how much they need me, in this case Apple, and what they do, or to the point that they get hooked on it. But it makes your life easier, you're going to use it.
Yeah.
And going back to the example on podcasting, I mean, podcasting is an evolving segment, rapidly growing and growing significantly this year. And you're seeing investments by all the big companies on it. But because I do believe that Google has an app for podcasts, Spotify of course going big into it, and I would argue that some of their actual applications might actually be a better product to listen and manage your podcast listening habits. And not saying Apple's is bad, and I'm sure they're going to evolve it, but with the amount of iPhones out there and the integrated experience, especially as more new people get into the podcast world, I mean, I think our analytics are always going to show Apple's going to dominate in terms of it, because it's going to be easy. And as we get people, and again, the thousands of people each week that tune into our show and this show and our other two shows, Begin and Disruptor Studio, I bet you there's people who normally don't listen to podcasts, but if they're going to go listen to it, either they're going to go to the thing and the link that shows it on their device, or they're going to go, why not? Oh, Apple, I got that, and it's easy. So that ease of integration, I think, is such a winner, and taking friction out of your world.
I can't tell you how many times I get a link texted to me that's a Apple podcast link, and I'm on my Android phone, and I'm like, ugh. And I gotta go grab my laptop and try to pull it up there. No, it's definitely a great experience. And from a purity perspective, it does bother me that it's such a closed network.
Yeah.
But from a practical consumer experience, I'm like, yeah, like everybody in my family, I've got this massive family. They're all using Apple devices, right? And to be able to airdrop a photo to my wife, which I did yesterday from my iPad. It's like so simple. Otherwise, what on my email? It's just so that, I think Apple at some point may or may not, but if they really want to sort of capture all of us, they're going to have to improve, I would say, the business side of their operation, if that's something they want to do.
If they care about that, right?
Man, if they care about that, right, and they very well may not. But Google's going to have to do the other. It's like they've got to create an experience that connects people into their ecosystem, and I just don't think they've made great products, but they haven't thought about how to pull it all together.
Well, and extending it out, I mean, I know I was shopping for a car, and the biggest, and I know it's standard now, but the first thing I'm looking into it, one is, it's interesting how you look at the car. I mean, there's a performance, there's a car and all that, but then all of a sudden more and more it's like, what's the tech? And the first thing I'm wondering, okay, let me see about your Apple Car. How is this brand doing with the Apple Car interface? Because that's the most important thing now. It's like, now the irony is I might be using Google Maps or something instead, or Waze, which is a Google product, which is interesting because, by the way, the Apple Map experience has it because, they had that huge disaster years ago with Apple Maps, but it's actually because it's a pretty good. One of my kids actually uses Apple Map for their navigation, and it actually is a pretty good experience, right? A pretty amazing experience. But it goes to show you too about the latency of a bad brand experience.
That's exactly right. And there was a study that came out recently that compared all three of them, and Apple Maps won in terms of best being able to predict when you'd arrive at your location, which is pretty important part of that that map experience.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, I in my mind, I still think, no, it's not a good product because of years and years ago when it just came out and
put people in a lake,
the wrong places.
Exactly, put you in the lake. But yeah, no, it's and they actually now they will tell you specifically what lane to be in and all that when you're driving. But I do find, but that's the irony of it. It's like it was so important to me that there was a good Apple Car experience integration or platform, even though I might be using Waze or a non-Apple product for navigation primarily, which is an irony, but it's because of the devices. So I think this ecosystem.
But just on that note, real quick, as a company that builds apps, if you think about what the car company has to do at that point, they can put the Google Auto experience and they can put the Apple experience in there. The problem is with the Google side of it is if you have a Samsung device, a lot of times Samsung will put an extra layer of software on top of what Google puts into the package, and all the other LG, they all do that kind of thing. And so you have to like almost build in all these upgrades and things that can happen so that each different phone. So a lot of people on an Android device aren't going to get a great experience because it's just really hard for the software to keep up. Whereas Apple, it's exactly the same on all the devices. And so it just makes it easier, as in this case, the car manufacturer, to make the experience great for Apple and just okay for Google products.
But obviously, what we do know is that, we do know Google has a few dollars in the bank as well. So I would expect. I think it is an interesting question. What is going to be their strategy? More of an engineering-driven company versus a design-driven company historically doesn't mean that could change. And I'm not as good at tracking this. I know there's there's services who track what the tech companies are hiring, right? Like Apple's hiring a bunch of auto engineers, or Google's hiring a bunch of design folks and all that. So it'd be interesting to see those patterns, because it'll probably give us a prediction. So I agree, it'll be interesting to see what Google does, because Google will be part of I think it'll be more and more part of our worlds, just like Apple is. And as much as people are concerned about, big tech sometimes, I think it's for different reasons, but people will want their life simplified. And I think it's only going to be a few companies. And it'll be interesting to see Amazon. I don't know if they're ever going to get to the point where Apple and Google are in terms of day-to-day tech, but I will say that Amazon has creeped into my life more and more without me expecting it, in terms of integration, in terms of what we do.
Yeah, well, Alexa is a big part of that, right? I mean,
it's
that's
funny.
still the most amazing thing, that Apple doesn't have a in-home device. I mean, that's incredible.
The one that people buy, because I think they have some. Actually, I don't know. That's a good point. That's a great point. It's funny. We have not turned into an Alexa household yet, and I don't know why. I'm sure that's going to come, and it's going to be just like everything else. The moment we buy it, it's going to be like, how could we never have had this before? And so that'll be a flip. Of course, I believe they own Ring and several home security platforms. So yeah, they're coming at it from, I think, that whole home management perspective, and that's going to be the aspect, though. If you have like your Alexa and security experience through Amazon, you have your kind of hub through Apple. It seems to be the tech companies are willing to let that integrate as well too. But I don't know if that's going to be interesting as well. But it'd be interesting on the brand perception, because for me, Apple took a huge leap forward with Apple Plus TV, but not even for the integration, but for the content.
Yeah,
and
so good.
And so, what's your favorite show right now on Apple Plus?
Yeah, it's definitely Ted Lasso, and that show builds to where I really love the character and the cast. I mean, it's so good. But there've been several on that. I originally tried Apple TV Plus only like 4 or 5 months ago, because I wanted to watch the morning show, and thought, you know what, I'll try it out. My wife and I were looking for something to watch, and we'll try it out and then probably unsubscribe after a month when we watch it. And then I tried Defending Jacob, I think based on your recommendation.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Super good. And, everything I've watched on there has been such high quality and really good. So Ted Lasso right now, I'm like waiting each week for it to come out.
Yeah, that's a good show, and you have to watch the I forget the name of it, but it's I mean, they only have so many shows, so you can find it. But it's another comedy based off a gaming company.
That's one of my favorites too. Mythic Quest, maybe.
Yeah, Mythical. Yeah, that would has to be the best. I mean,
it's just over now, so I didn't mention it.
But between Ted Lasso and that one, I mean, it's probably some of the best comedies I've seen. Period. Smartly done. More mature probably on both of them, obviously. But yeah, they've and then C, which is one of their original. I mean, I think I read it was over $100 million to produce a season of C. So it's kind of in that kind of his epic show. But that's an interesting element. So when you see Apple Plus, and they have a deal with one of these independent filmmakers, and by the way, they just they had a documentary they released called Boy State, which, if you are into the state of politics and culture and all that in America, it was just a great perspective through this boy state in Texas. It's just such quality programming. But now it'll be interesting. Do people buy more Apple products as a result? It doesn't even matter, because I think that for them, they realize content has to fuel everything they do. Yeah. But I find myself now going to Apple Plus more than I do the Amazon Prime or whatever. But yeah, so it'd be interesting. But yeah, no, continue to do that. And by the way, I know if you having a company that has great, who focus a lot in development on game theory. And of course, what you do in developing apps, I think we're going to see more and more of that as we get hooked into these platforms. But going back to the fitness thing, I think they've done an incredible job on that. And by the way, I think it's not even the gamification. I think these companies have created ecosystems where you feel safe, where you feel you're getting professional help. I think we're seeing slowly the modification of the fitness industry.
Yeah.
I'm not even so slowly anymore. I think how gyms and private trainers survive this. When all of a sudden, not only at Peloton and Nordictrack, but when you got Apple now competing with your local gym, that's effectively what's happening.
Yep.
That's going to be interesting. And I think it's going to require gyms to change what they're about now.
Yes, exactly. Like you can imagine now a gym that maybe has 10,000 square feet, maybe 2,000 of it they section off for producing content and allowing their members to get that content at home. I'd be really scared right now if I were a gym company, just in general, because all these at home experiences are getting so good. And look, we're probably going to be in some on and off state of quarantine for a long time, maybe a year. So more and more people are going to be trying things at home. And then I'd really be nervous if I was Peloton or Nordic or any company that you have to buy equipment in order to really get the experience, because Apple's going to probably very quickly have more and better content. And they're already on your wrist and in your hand. And so this ability, so someone right now, like me, who I've thought about Peloton, but now I'm like, well, I'm definitely going to try Apple Fitness before I try Peloton, because then I'm not landlocked to one piece of equipment. So I think that whole, I think it was really smart of Apple, especially given our time right now, to bring this into the picture. And I think they're looking at it going, look, we can get people from a fitness perspective, if we can get people from a content perspective, we've got them. Like, how do you step out of that if those are the things that are pulling you in?
And my prediction is going to be that you're just like you see connected cars, you're going to see connected devices, and not just, obviously they already have it with Peloton and Nordictrack and all the other manufacturers, but I wouldn't be surprised if we hear an announcement one day of, Apple Fitness is integrated into Nordictrack or Peloton or something like that. And it'll be interesting. Again, this is just speculation. You can see a company like Nordictrack be first to do something like that, because I think Peloton, it's, just like Apple, it kind of prides itself on being more closed ecosystem. And Nordictrack, what they want you to do is buy five of their devices, create a home gym, and you could see them trying to integrate. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. By the way, my concern with the fitness industry is I think it's going to be hard for the local gyms to create content. I think you're going to see high experience gyms be okay. So the Lifetimes of the world, premium, no different than I think we're seeing like movie theaters. The premium experience is going to, win over people who just want to spend a few bucks to go see a theater when they could see it at home. So I think you're going to see that in the fitness industry. So then it's going to be, how can gyms pivot to that customized experience? And for those who are also, there are those who do need, I need 20 different devices and weights and all that. You can't duplicate at home necessarily, or at least effectively. But it's going to change. I think it's going to absolutely change for the casual, because to your point, even beyond the pandemic or quarantine, just like I think we're seeing fundamental behaviors in terms of people even working from home or working at home, or what this all means. This is just one of the many things I think that people realize, oh, wow, I could do this. So why should I commute to this gym when I could invest, and you could do the math in your head and invest in this stuff in my house, even if it is buying equipment. The return on buying some equipment is not that. The math works pretty favorably, pretty fast. Unless, again, you need a huge variety of equipment. If you want every single thing, then you can't duplicate that. But I think it's like any other segment. You got to break it into different customer segments and understand which one you might be losing.
No, totally agree.
Well, good. Well, Jeff, I think we know that. So I don't even know what the date is with Apple Fitness, but I think it's going to be coming out here pretty soon. I think
later this year. So probably October, November.
And they'll be announcing their new phone as well too. So I'm looking forward to you being the first subscriber. And we'll get the Apple. Maybe it'll be a new segment. We'll get the Apple Fitness review. But I think it's
Yeah.
going to be with you a hit, and it's probably going to get me. I've been slow to get the Apple Watch, but it's probably going to be the thing that gets me the Apple Watch, including, by the way, which we didn't even talk about, their health integration.
Hmm.
And I've discovered this year even Apple Health on the app in terms of how amazing it is to integrate everything from your doctor's office to your workouts and all that in this one box, and to get a holistic view of your health. So I think this Apple continues, to double down on that. So anyways, yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. We'll get the official Apple Fitness review later, and we'll probably also have some more official reviews of everything else that that we're experiencing. But also fascinating to see the evolution of this ecosystem and industry moving on. But so until then, Jeff, I guess you'll be out, running on your own with no Apple Fitness to help you here today, right?
Just Garmin, like the greatest GPS running company. So I'm doing just fine. But
Exactly.
yeah,
And we know you won't get lost at least. So,
that's right.
you'll make it back. Well, good. Well, good seeing you again once again. And thanks everybody for joining the Jeff and Alex podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple or any other one. And we'll see you every week.
See you guys next time.